This handout is basically continued from Monday. On Monday, the printout that you got was basically the muscle, the fascicles, and the muscle fibers. And now we're zooming in on a muscle fiber. Do you guys know in the cartoons when they have those little Russian doll thingies where you open it and there's a smaller one and then you open it and there's a smaller one? It's like that, basically, right? So it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and there's more smaller pieces and there's more smaller pieces. But this is it. This is the end here. Okay, all right? So we're going to use black or pencil first to label this structure here. This is going to be our number 1. Any guesses as to what we're looking at here?
Muscle fiber.
It is a muscle fiber. You guys, some of you drew this very well, so it's pretty awesome. It was tough to draw. This is a muscle fiber. Basically, what is a muscle fiber?
Cell.
It's a cell, thank you. So I'm just gonna put cell in parentheses. A muscle fiber or a cell is actually composed up of these smaller kind of noodle-looking tube thingies right here, cylinders. So we're gonna label this as number 2. So this whole cylinder is 1. We have another one here. I don't know how you wanna do it. Do you wanna circle it and label that as number 2? I'm just gonna draw a little bracket around this one. And I'm gonna label that as number 2. So I don't know how you want to indicate that that entire thing is number 2. Muscle fibers are made up of these smaller strands here. They're called myofibrils. Can you please say myofibril?
Myofibrils.
How many myofibrils do you have in this picture? 8 or 9-ish. I think behind this one right here, there's one more. You can kind of see the dots in it. Yeah. So I'm just going to write there are 9 in this picture. All they are actually clumps of proteins. So they're long strands of proteins. Notice for number 2, we extended one of the myofibrils here. And so you can see that there's 2 different textures, this kind of like darkish color and this gray color. So these are the 2 different types of proteins that make up myofibrils. So for number 3, essentially we're labeling these proteins here that make up myofibrils. Oops, I don't know why I wrote myofibril again. Hopefully you guys wrote in pencil. The proteins that make up myofibrils are called actin and myosin. What we're going to do is we're going to zoom in on actin and myosin to look at how are they arranged with each other. So we're going to draw that. So I'm going to put an asterisk here and say see drawing below. And we're going to draw below that. So about halfway down the page, or maybe a third of the page, I'm going to section it off. I'd say that's a good third. We're going to be drawing the 2 types of protein that make up myofibrils. Class, can you please tell me the name of the 2 proteins? Actin and myosin. So we're going to write that out. I want you to watch very carefully while I draw actin. Watch me first and then copy after. So actin has a very unique shape. It's pretty symmetrical. It has a zigzag shape, but I want you to pay attention. I'm starting from the left. I'm going to draw 1 peak here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is harder than it looks, huh? But here's the catch. This is only one actin strand. That's not going to be the entirety of the myofibrils. We have many actin strands. I'm going to draw a second one, but I want you to watch first. This second one is going to be a mirror image of the first one. About 1.5 inches away, I'm going to draw one that's a mirror image of the first one. Good luck. I'm going to draw a third one that's a mirror image of the second one. So make sure all the peaks line up. And then I'm going to draw a fourth one, and the fourth one is going to be a mirror image of the third one. Make sure the peaks line up. So the catch is actin has a branching kind of shape to it. So I'm going to have you watch first before you draw. Each peak has a little branch coming towards the next actin strand. The catch is, even though they come close to each other, they don't actually interact. So go ahead and draw yours close but not touching. So each peak has a branch coming off of it towards the next strand, but it is not touching. So we just drew 4 actin strands, so I'm just going to go ahead and label one of them as actin, or more commonly called the thin filament. What's the other protein that we're missing? So think myosin starts with an M, so does the word middle. Myosin are in the middle of the actin. They have a really complex structure, so we're just going to simplify this and just draw a line instead. In red, or orange, or whatever color you have. The structure of myosin is very unique. Some people describe it as a bunch of golf clubs stuck together. But we don't have time to draw that, so we're going to do lines. So I'm going to label that myosin. Any guesses as to the common name? Thick filament. Actin is thin, so myosin is thick. Interesting guesses, though. If you were looking at a slide, how could you tell you were looking at skeletal muscle? What would you see? Striations. And here's the crazy thing. You see these actin zigzag lines right here? These are what makes your striations. So it's actually the shape of the proteins that you're seeing as stripes, okay? But when you're looking at a slide, you're looking at the more zoomed out version. You're looking on the outside here, so you see the striations. But when we're zoomed in this close, these are your striations. Their technical name is Z-line, because it kind of looks like the letter Z. How many Z-lines do you have? 4. And when you have one Z-line to the next Z-line, that section or that segment of actin, myosin, actin, that's called a sarcomere. Alright, here's what I want you to imagine. A Slinky. Do you guys remember the little plastic ones? The ones that were like this big and they came in all these different colors. Did you ever play with it and you were like, oh, what would happen if I just completely stretched it out? Did anybody do that where they just pulled it as hard as they could? What does it look like when you pull it as hard as you can? It's just a long piece of stringy plastic, right? When you let go, sometimes if it was the good kind, it might come back to its original shape. But for the most part, it was like done for. It was just stretched out, right? So muscle is kind of like that. If your muscles relax, it's nice, flat, and long. But when it's contracted or when you flex, it kind of shrinks up. The lengths get shorter and they get wider, okay? So that's how you contract or when you flex your muscle. These lines right here, they get pulled closer to each other. So the myosin pull the actin closer to each other, causing the muscle to bulge a little bit. Right? So if you imagine someone flexing, just think about like the emoji, you know the flex arm emoji? It has a little like bicep lump on it. So the muscles get wider whenever they contract because these lines right here get closer to each other, they bulge a little bit. Okay? We'll look into that a little bit more later, next week. But we're going to come back up over here. Notice, what do we call that zigzag line right there again? Z-line or striation. We're missing one because we have myosin. So that Z-line is our actin. We have myosin. We're missing another Z-line. So I'm just going to add that into your drawing. So by drawing an actin line, we have completed our sarcomere. So just throw in that zigzag Z-line or actin line. Yours is there? Oh. And I'm going to just put a label right here. Between the two Z lines is number 4. Again, what do you call that from Z line to Z line? Sarcomere. We're going to define sarcomere as a contracting unit of muscle fibers. So whenever you want to flex in order to move, your sarcomeres will contract and get shorter. Contracting unit, of muscle fibers. So every time you want to move or flex, you have to contract the sarcomeres. They get shorter, and that's how you get movement. When you're done flexing, in order to extend, you relax the sarcomeres. They elongate to their original size. All right, we'll finish 5, 6, 7, 8 after our stretch break. So go ahead and get up, walk around, stretch, go to the bathroom if you need to, do stuff. Just don't sit, move.
Oh, I do.